Federal government promises support to businesses willing to invest in Nigeria. Bangladesh, Nigeria to sign Act on Agriculture. African innovation jobs to raise GDP by $159 million in 2036. This episode of Business Express will be focusing on digital economy in Nigeria and the world. The program is Business Express and I am Muplang Dakok. The Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC, says it has concluded arrangements with the United States Trade and Development Agency to sign a $1.16 million grant as part of funding for the NNPC Abuja Independent Power Project. The plant is modeled to generate 1,350 megawatts of electricity to alleviate the power challenge across the country. The Group Managing Director, NNPC, Mele Kyari, said the plan by the corporation to build a power plant in Abuja is part of the national strategy to monetize the abundant natural gas resources across the country. The world has gone digital and it is steadily changing people's way of life. Leah Katumba Batunde in this report paints a picture of the digital trends Nigeria will have to key into. Let's have this background report before facing the business of the day.
Africa must prepare people, yes, young people, for the jobs of the future, not the jobs of the past. And so when we take a look at universities, what do we find? We find that no more than 2 to 3% of universities have people that are in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics.
For global policymakers and investors, Africa is the new destination for technological advancements as the world continues to gravitate towards artificial intelligence and broader digital expansion. A recent report by Oxford University finds that 47% or half of all current jobs will no longer exist in 25 years, while new professions are gaining ground. It also finds that data is the new oil and therefore every company is looking for data scientists, architects and engineers in fields where attracting talent is a major challenge for businesses as every sector is competing for the same profiles. The world is targeting to fill these gaps even before they occur.
Better jobs, higher wages, greater access to finance, more opportunities for women, more opportunities for young people. These are all areas where we need more potent reforms, more public and private investments.
This is important to Nigeria as a population explosion looms. It is estimated that the third largest nation in terms of population by 2050 will be Nigeria, and preparing for that time is paramount to government.
When you look at what we're seeing a lot of entrepreneurship. We're seeing a lot of young people who are very actively engaged in the digital economy at various levels.
We have experienced in China could help a lot of entrepreneurs in Africa. Supporting entrepreneurships in Africa, supporting education in Africa, support infrastructure in Africa, and support the education system in Africa.
In the wake of these realities, this edition of Business Express will be looking at the digital economy, Nigeria, and the world.
Two gentlemen are with me in the studio to discuss prospects in the digital economy. Mustafa Ndajuo is the Executive Director, African Center for Tax and Governance, and he is to my left. Thank you so much for coming on Business Express.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. We also have Adebi Oke of Silicon-Based Advisory Group. It's good to have you on the program.
Thank you very much.
So, gentlemen, within the space of 2 weeks, we had the two jacks in Nigeria, and then not too long before now, we had Zuckerberg of Facebook. So what's this attraction to Nigeria? I'll start with you, Adebi.
Yeah, thank you very much. The truth is that there is a big attraction. First is the numbers, all right? Nigeria is one of the highest populated country in the world, and also the economic potential. And of course, in terms of technology traction, our youths have been doing quite a lot in the industry. They've been trying to develop apps and solutions and all of those. And the country is basically forward-looking, and they feel like it's time to actually tap into this. Gone were those days where the early guys that came to Nigeria came to look for oil. Now they are coming to look for brains. The brains are here and they are in their numbers. So definitely they want to tap from that.
Okay. Mustafa, can you tell us how important is digital economy to the world and to Nigeria in particular? And then how aware are Nigerians of this enormous potential inherent in digital economy?
I think if we look at the current trend in the past 10, 15 years, you will all agree with me that the whole economy is becoming digitalized, which is why sometimes you hear the term digital economy and sometimes you hear the term digitalized economy. So when we say digital economy, it mostly connotes like a particular sector of the economy. Whereas when you say digitalized economy, it shows how digitalization has transcended all sectors of economy. So it's important. It's what's happening today. It's where we're going to, and there's no hiding from it. In terms of awareness, I would say it's limited. It's limited to those are in the core IT sector. Yes, because if you look at where we've gone, you have the InterSwitches of this world, the Jumias of this world, the Andelas of this world, doing remarkable things, empowering even young Nigerians, the likes of Andela, training a whole lot of Nigerians. So there's awareness, but it's limited to the core ICT. So because, like I said, digitalization transcends the whole economy. So for example, you should have some sort of linkages between the agricultural sector, which is a very important sector in Nigeria, with e-commerce. So you should have e-commerce transcending agricultural sector, promoting this sector, improving the value chain. But it's not really happening. The uptake is sort of so in that realm, I would say that the awareness is a bit low.
Okay.
Yeah.
So since the awareness is a little bit low, from what you just said, how favorable is the environment for this digitization to thrive?
So, I mean, that's a tricky question. So, on the one hand, like he said, the whole lot of opportunities, numbers, and these guys, the Facebooks, the Googles, the Amazons of this world, they have their own global strategy, and it works with numbers, and it's data, and data is also tied. It's tied to numbers. So if you have a population of 200 million people, you you can have billions of data points that you can use for so many things: marketing, market analytics, advertisements, even artificial intelligence, creating robotics that behave, that understand how people in different environments. So even though we are way behind in terms of digital literacy, I believe there's room to grow, and I think the government can play a significant role in doing that.
Okay, we are going to come to what government is going to do.
Great.
But Mr. Adebi, let's talk about regulation. Is there any regulation in place for digital economy or for the digitization in Nigeria? And then how is the regulation being done?
Talking about regulation, there is quite a lot that needs to be done. Okay, taking a step backwards. I think government itself needs to walk the talk in terms of embracing the ICT as much as possible, more than it's currently obtains. Now, coming back to regulation now, government needs to do quite a lot. Government would want to regulate such that there's some high level of control around the system and everywhere. Now, the government agencies that are responsible for this need to actually wake up to the beat. Right now, I would say the entire industry is under-regulated. They would need to do quite a lot more. Talking about the National Information Technology Development Agency, talking about the Nigerian Communications Commission, talking about the Ministry of Communication, they would need to come together and they would need to actually, rejig every policy that actually exists within the industry and bring it forward to align with what obtains today. What's currently the policies are and all of what is currently being done is a bit behind where the world is today. So if they must take advantage of all of this, they would need to wake up, in terms of regulation and do a proper regulation for the sector as much as possible.
All right. Let me go back to Mr. Mustafa. Mustafa, what do you think about his own thoughts? Let's have your own thoughts about regulation and then who regulates it.
Yeah, so like he mentioned some of the key regulators, the NIDA, the Ministry of Communication, and now called the Ministry of Communication and Digital Economy, yes, which signifies sort of efforts from the government, which is commendable. But we also have the central banks who work on the payment systems, right? We have FIRS on the tax part. So on the tax part, we have two conversations, right? How do you make the tax policy in a way that it helps build digitalization, right? So that's what we're talking about. Or how do we generate revenue from digitalization? Which conversations should come first? Should we have them together? And are we looking at it from the domestic or the cross-border perspective? So there's a lot of, there is some regulation. For example, in terms of FIRS, the taxation, I would say that the domestic part of it is there. There is all the extant laws we have, VAT, CIT, do in a large extent cover digitalization, because the laws does not need to necessarily mention digitalization to be able to tax digitalization.
Okay, you talked about revenue.
Yeah.
Let me cut you there, sorry.
Okay.
You talked about revenue. So there has been a lot of discourse on taxing products on the digital space. So what do you make of taxation in that regard? And then do you think Nigeria is ready for that? And is it well equipped to be able to do that?
Yeah, so taxation of digitalization is a very complex area, and I'm going to split it into two, right? Like I said earlier, you have the domestic bit of it, and you have the international, the cross-border bit of it. Okay. In terms of the domestic taxation, it's a lot easier, and then if you follow the recent reports, FIRS is planning on doing something in that line. I think by next year they're planning on taxing digitalized businesses, particularly VAT, which is a whole lot easier. But if you go on to the cross-border, because Nigeria cannot isolate itself from the global economy, right? You have the Amazons based in the US doing business with customers based in Nigeria. So the question now is, which of these countries have the right to tax the transaction? So you have so many laws based on residence, where you say you tax this taxpayer because he's resident here, or you say the tax laws are based on source. You tax this because the source of the income is here. And there are a lot of contradictions, a lot of complications. Currently, under the OECD and the inclusive framework, there are conversations that are going on how to better structure the international tax system. Whether or not it's going to favor the countries like Nigeria, at the end of the day, it's a bit tricky, because from the recent history, the transfer pricing guidelines, which guides countries in terms of cross-border taxation, has been a bit complicated and very difficult for countries like Nigeria, developing countries, to actually follow.
Okay. Mr. Debi, let's have your thoughts on the same issue of taxing
Yeah.
products?
Yeah. Just like he has said, the truth is that it may take a while. We're hoping FRS are able to actually, come to terms as regards to how to achieve this in the next year, 2020. If they're able to, very good for us. But the OECD is something that they've been working on for quite some time. They've been working around a framework that is going to be favorable for at least the countries that are actually involved in the economic cooperation within the OECD. And I believe that a country like Nigeria can actually leverage on the outcomes of that framework, such that it can actually bring it back home and domesticate it, and from which area that may actually affect the international or cross-border transactions and all of that as far as the digital economy is concerned. I'm sure that between countries we'll be able to actually achieve something out of that. All
right, let's go back to talking about Nigerians and the digital economy. How will you rate the performance of Nigerian digital entrepreneurs?
Wow, I would rate them way above average because they've been putting out so much and they've been doing so much. We all understand why they've not been able to gain traction over the years, especially for those who have actually come out, and after some time it seems as if their efforts are dwindling. Now, it's basically a function of the environment, and I believe that with the government waking up to putting the digital economy at the forefront, there will be the certain policies will be able to come alive and be able to support Nigerian entrepreneurs. Quite a lot of them are doing so much, and which is part of the reason why we have international digital figures coming into Nigeria to actually tap from the existing resources and see to what they are basically doing. But there's a limit to how much they will be able to achieve in terms of the local entrepreneurs because of the limitations of the existing policies and the challenges of the regulations that exist presently. I'm sure, and I know very well, that they want to do much more than they are currently doing. If you go to hubs and you go to innovation centers across the country, you would see how much these young minds are staying awake and trying to do so much.
Yes, you said they are doing well.
Yeah.
But how many of them do we have in the digital space? What I'm saying is, do we have enough number of Nigerians operating in that digital space?
Very few we have locally.
Okay.
Very few we have locally. On the international level, yes, we have quite a number of them. You have those ones that have done so well that organizations such as Oracle, such as Facebook and Google and the rest of them have come to actually poach them, and they are doing better for them outside of the country. But locally, there is a limit to how much they are doing, and there are very, very few of them, and basically just because of the limitations.
All right. Let's go back to Mr. Mustafa. Mr. Mustafa, you were talking about what needs to be done, so I'll take you on that. What steps need to be taken to take Nigeria to that place to be able to compete favorably with the world in terms of digital economy?
I think a lot can be done, but if I could narrow it down to a few things, I'd say education. I think it's very important, and that is what has helped India. And all the big companies he has mentioned, the Googles, the Facebooks, the Amazons. If you go there today, you find a lot of their executive directors, a lot of top people, top technicians there are from India. And it's because in India you have some of those institutions that have been built that are able to provide both for the local and the international community, provide experts in digitalization. Secondly, I would say infrastructure, right? So if you look at the UNCTAD's e-commerce readiness report, from one perspective, if you look at where we've come from, you would appreciate where we are today. However, if you look at where we're going to, you'd see that there's a whole lot that needs to be done. It's electricity, postal reliability, and so many other things. So there's a whole lot that the government can do.
All right, Mr. Adebi, let's have your own thoughts about what should be done or needs to be done.
It's
very briefly.
It's as simple as government matching words with action. We're talking about running digital economy in the country, and I believe that the doing the necessary things that will basically help to make that come to life is very, very important. It's talk about power. Power is very key. Internet at this point in time shouldn't be anything that should be luxury to anyone in this country. Internet should be readily available. Fiber to home should be a priority for government. Government shouldn't, at this point in time, add too much of taxation on telecommunications and all of those. So we believe that with that, it would actually be seamless across the country, and people will, technology will become more affordable and people will embrace it the more.
All right, thank you very much. This will be where we'll stop this conversation for now. Thank you so much, Mustafa and Dajuo, for coming on the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, and Adebi, okay? Thank you too for coming on the program.
Thank you for having us.
All right, let's move on now. All prices posted early gains as OPEC's output for oil demand next year fueled hopes that the producer group and its associates will keep a lead on supply when they meet to discuss policy on output next month. Let's see how the commodity market is faring both locally and internationally. Trading on the Nigerian Stock Exchange closed positive this Friday to end the week in green. The all-share index and market capitalization appreciated by 0.03% to close at 26,851.68 basis points. Investors exchanged 469.9 million shares valued at 5.5 billion naira, traded in 5,594 deals. Guinness, Flour Mill and Nigerian breweries were the top gainers, while MTN Nigeria, Guarantee Trust Bank and Access Bank were the top losers for the day. Access Bank, Zenith Bank and UBA, all of the financial industry, were the top trades for the day as they were the toast of investors. Asian markets were mixed Friday as investors watched for updates on trade negotiations between the US and China.
European shares rose in early trade on Friday as they set for a sixth straight week of gains. This is following a record close on Wall Street after bullish comments from a White House official on US-China trade talks boosted appetite for riskier assets. The DAX inched up 0.26% to hover around 13,186.53 points. The FTSE 100 shed 0.47% at midday to 7,259.46 points, while the CAC 40 of France added 0.28% to settle at 5,918.05 points. The Asian markets were mostly higher as investors digested recent developments on US-China trade. The Nikkei 225 in Japan is up by 0.7% at 23,303.33 points, while Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index was flat at 26,326.66 points. Meanwhile, the Shanghai Composite was 0.64% lower at around 2,891.34 points. In the United States, the latest stock valuation measures were mixed, with the Dow Jones declining 0.01% and the Nasdaq Composite also fell by 0.04% to 8,479.02 points, while the S&P 500 inched up by 0.08% to 3,096.63 points. Stocks in Africa on Friday were mostly green. On the positive side, South Africa's JSE Top 40 advanced by 0.12%. The Nairobi All-Share Index rose by 1%, as Tunisia's Tunidex and Ghana's GSE Composite appreciated by 0.2% and 0.1% in that order. On the other hand, Namibia's overall index lost 1%.
And that brings us to the end of this edition of Business Express. You can access all previous episodes on YouTube, and you can communicate with us on Twitter. The handle is @NTA News Now. The hashtag is BizX. We value your feedback, so keep the mails coming and join us again next week, Monday, for another episode of the program. I am Muplang Dakok. Say keep thinking and doing business.